Hey everyone, welcome back to the Inside AutoMind podcast. Today I'm joined by Brad Couvillon, head of Motive Logistics. Brad is an Air Force veteran and a Lean Six Sigma black belt and a supply chain strategist with more than 15 years of experience. Thank you for joining us, Brad.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dustin. I appreciate it.
So in this episode, Brad's going to break down how Motive Logistics uses AI data, real-world experience to help companies streamline their supply chains, cut costs, and find hidden efficiencies. So we'll start with a little about you, Brad, and your role. Can you share a little bit about your role as the head of Motive Logistics and also how it ties into the bigger mission?
Yeah, sure. So I work as let's call it a strategic partner for manufacturers and distributors. There's so many companies out there right now that are stuck in this reactive mode, right? You're fighting daily fires. You're paying all these unnecessary fees for one reason or another. You have all this capital tied up in excess inventory. So what I do is I help them to step back and to redesign their logistics strategy. We look at everything from redesigning their transportation network, their warehouse flow, regulatory risk, investing in new technology, as you mentioned, and we turn their supply chain into a strategic advantage. You don't really look at me as much on the tactical level, kind of the day to day, but more as a strategic partner and an advisor.
For sure. There's a lot of big things that these companies deal with that seems like you can definitely help them smooth it out.
Yeah, most definitely. The list is quite long.
Sounds
Sometimes it
endless, yeah.
seems. Yeah, most
But I'm sure
definitely.
you open their eyes a lot because there's a lot of things that they don't realize that you can come in and, point out.
Yeah, definitely. Particularly with even if you just look in the last, say, 90 days, right? There are so many things that have happened within let's call it the global logistics landscape. You have the tariff shifts. You have all this regulatory, compliance, these issues. You have the elimination of the de minimis exemption. Let's not forget you always have hurricanes. You always have supplier issues. You have, of course, the economy. Are they going to reduce rates? Are they not? There are so many things that are constantly changing within the global logistics landscape that you really need someone that can help you, not just with the tactical day-to-day, the process issues, but also looking more at your entire logistics network that can help you on a strategic level too.
Okay, now to piggyback off of that, you kind of touched on it, but what does a typical day look like when you're balancing strategy, analytics, and client execution?
So that's a great question. It really depends on what the needs are. With Motive, we have 6 primary service offerings. It could be anything, as I mentioned earlier, from transportation network optimization, also along the lines of transportation. It can be detention and demurrage, cost savings and reduction. It can be also inventory and material flow analysis in your manufacturing environment as well as a warehousing environment. And then also a little more on the kind of the higher level, strategic level, you've got technology integration, which I think is something that's very interesting and applicable to you, right? With all the AI enabled tools out there, and then you also have, what WMS, TMS, ERP, you have this alphabet soup of technology that's available out there. Executives don't always know exactly what's available. They don't really understand what they can do necessarily always, and they don't see the ROI. But even further back, you have your regulatory compliance issues, right? And then finally, there's the supply chain, the risk and resilience, not just supplier selection, but also managing with cargo theft and all these other risks that you have out there in your supply chain these days.
So it sounds like you're the go-to guy. There's a lot of business out there for you, it seems.
There's definitely a need in the market. And I would say that's one of the reasons why we launched Motive in the first place. I started to fill a gap that I saw in the market. As we talked about earlier, these companies are so tied up in day-to-day tactical processes, and they're not getting that strategic perspective, this overall view of the whole landscape, including technology that can make their lives easier.
It's a perfect business mindset. You see an opportunity and you take it. No one was playing that field, so it's perfect for you. So I guess a little bit about industry trends. Your website emphasizes turning logistics into a strategic advantage. What major shifts are you seeing in the industry that makes, more urgent now?
Yeah. Well, we touched on a little bit earlier, didn't we? Is you've got the trade landscape, right? Right now, that's getting so much more complex these days. We're seeing things like the U.S. customs rules, suspending the duty-free treatment, right? The de minimis exemption. You also have these competitors out there filing false claims act lawsuits. You've got to be proactive when it comes to regulations and compliance, right? But then you also have a lot of talk about supply chain resilience. And that's been discussed for quite some time, but it's not just about physical security. That's definitely not enough anymore. With cargo theft up 13% year over year, there's a new number. These criminals are using these sophisticated methods like document fraud, fictitious pickups, these double brokering. A resilient supply chain, it needs a multi-layered defense against both physical and these digital risks.
Hmm. Perfectly put. So in that case, how does AI and data analytics, like the forecasting tools I know you guys use, how does that play out in your approach to inventory and freight optimization?
Yeah, so for technology, it's the backbone of decision making these days, isn't it?
Hmm.
Again, you've got all these AI-enabled tools, you have digital twins, robotics, and then we talked about the alphabet soup earlier as well. Just to give you an example or a couple of examples, Walmart, they forecast a $1.5 billion annual reduction in inventory cost with this new AI-enabled inventory management tool that they've got. Another big number for you that just wows me as well is Unilever, right? They've got this AI-enabled demand forecasting tool, and they claim that they've increased their forecast accuracy from, I think it's 67% to over 90%. And that's amazing. For these large companies, that's literally billions of dollars per year in savings. But even for mid-sized organizations, 25 million to 100 million, give or take, you still have millions of dollars of savings that are on the table with these technological solutions. And it's really hard often to convince the C-suite, the boardroom, right, of the value of this new technology. And no offense to them, but largely I think it's because they don't understand what all of this tech is and what it can do, right? They need someone, let's say like me, that can quantify that ROI, that can explain what this stuff does in real words, not this technical jargon. I mean, there's so much tech out there, and they just don't know what's the right one to use often. They're maybe scared to bring someone in to help them because maybe this guy gets a commission for selecting one of the products, right? And that's not how I operate. Consider me a logistics fiduciary, right? I don't have any partnerships with software companies or any other tech providers. So I have a fully impartial opinion on the subject, and I'm going to do what's best for your business, not what's best for my bank account.
No, I mean, that's the right way to come across. So you sound like, I guess you would call it more of a growth partner. You're trying to grow with them, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Something that I say a lot, I think I've said it a few times already, is you don't want to you don't look at me necessarily on the tactical level. I'll be more than happy to help you with process improvement and some data analytics and procuring carriers, whatever it is on the logistics side. But really where I think I'm going to add the biggest value and you're going to see the biggest ROI is if you look at it on a strategic higher level. Because again, with this constantly changing landscape, with so much tech available out there that many are afraid to implement because they just don't really understand what it is and think it's going to cost too much up front. They really need someone, they really need an expert with this experience that can lay it out for them and actually present the options for them and show them the ROI and develop a roadmap for their technological future at the business.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, not just business owners, but everyone in general, a lot of people get stuck in their ways and kind of get in their own way as far as not adopting new technology. Things are always changing as life goes on, so you kind of got to adapt to the change, and this is one of the biggest change we've seen in probably everyone's lifetime as far as AI goes, like it's just going to change everything dramatically there's a lot of cool things it can already do, but this is just scratching the surface of what it is going to be. It's like in this, the baby stages right now.
Yeah,
But
most definitely.
yeah, again,
Absolutely.
it's like perfect for people like us, but again, you do have to convince a lot of people on why they should get into this kind of technology and how it can benefit them. But it can benefit everybody from $1 million companies even to small companies. There's a lot of wasted day-to-day time and money that you could automate things.
Yeah, most definitely. And you're absolutely right. There's an article that I read just the other day on, I think it was transport topics, where they had an interview with one of kind of the main employees over with OpenAI, right? ChatGPT. And that's one of the things that he said is you want to focus on small automations first, right? And I mean, I've even said it in the past. I could automate some things for you. Take some, these 5 reports and we can build some Excel macros and combine those into one single source of truth, right? You can do little automations like that. those things have been out there for decades, right? But that's what you want to automate first is your email compilation and finding the most important ones to answer, that kind of thing. So automate smaller processes first and then build into these larger technological investments, right?
True. Yeah, the email one's a big one. There's assistants now. They're coming out with all kinds of crazy things. Assistants for emails, assistants for appointments, assistants for, you could even have a chat bot now where it sounds just like a real human. It's pretty amazing
Yeah,
what's going on. It's
yeah,
scary
absolutely.
but amazing at the same time, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. Was it? I think their name was Monlike. Is that how you say that?
Moonlika. Yeah, it's a
Moonlike.
Swedish
Okay,
brand.
excuse me.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
I
another
knew I was
difficult
gonna
to
butcher.
pronounce name. Yeah, so you
So
got
I
my French
know.
last name, then you got a Swedish brand, right?
So I know you worked with them reducing freight. I believe it was by over 1 million and delivery times in half. So what's working well for clients today, and where do you think like most people are still hitting roadblocks?
Yeah, well, that was on transportation optimization, right? That was optimizing their transportation network. And yeah, so many companies they try to cut their freight costs by constantly negotiating with their carriers or trying to procure even cheaper ones, right? You can't negotiate forever though. There's real savings, and that could be 10 to 25% annually. They come from redesigning the network itself. Don't get me wrong, you need the best rate, but you also want a sustainable rate that enables those partners to perform at their best, right? I mean, I'm not, when I'm optimizing a transportation network, I'm not just looking at the existing carrier's rates. I'm looking at the most efficient mode of transportation to use for each lane, right? I'm also looking at carrier performance. I'm developing a carrier scorecard that's weighted based on the needs of that specific business. I'm using it to minimize freight damage, customer returns, to really weigh the performance of each carrier and to maybe assign a level of business to the higher performing ones. So, you know, I mean, looking at another example, transportation network optimization. I had this one client, they were using a full truckload for a local shipment. We found they could use a box truck that could make 2 turns in one day, and it was going to cost them half as much. It's about finding creative solutions like that, not just, squeezing another couple dollars out of an existing carrier.
No, but it's amazing that like people think like again going back to like how you said implementing AI, going hand in hand with what you just mentioned. It's not always about the big changes. Look, something you so simple, but it was pretty dramatic as far as results go or return on investment. But
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, quick wins, right? There's so much
Mhm.
low-hanging fruit out there just by using basic data analytics. I mean, there was another one that I had, another client. They started putting out rollers on the loading dock to floor load parcels onto a trailer, onto a parcel carrier's, 53-foot van trailer. They're trying to ship 1,500 parcels a day. And look, if you're in retail or, B2C or something, that's fairly common. That's not a big deal. But if you also ship LTL and FTL, you don't necessarily want to ship 1,500 parcels a day. They're constantly talking about, we want to get it all out. We've just got to find a better way, a more efficient way of getting it out each day. And I asked him, I said, why do you even want to ship that much parcel? I don't think they had ever looked at it that way. We ended up cutting parcel volume for them from over 10% of the total down to under 2%. And it's often a mindset shift that's required, all the way from the loading dock all the way up to director, VP, and C-suite level. Sometimes you have to change the mindset so that people can say, well, maybe we don't have to do it this way. Just because we've always done it that way doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the best way to go about it is having an outside eye, someone that's not in the day-to-day operations kind of take a look at it. You see things differently. It's always good to have different perspectives for sure.
Exactly. And that's something that I say a lot as well. I completely agree with you is, you may be an extremely intelligent, capable, absolutely amazing at what you do. But if you have an outside pair of eyes, you have a little bit of extra muscle there on the data analytics, on the process, the process mapping, then maybe someone is going to see something a little differently. Maybe they with that outside pair of eyes, they can see something just slightly differently that can help you with a massive change within the organization. It's always good to have another pair of eyes, to have that outside opinion on a system or a process, just to see what else maybe you're missing, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, I think in the day-to-day grind, everybody gets tunnel vision, and you kind of like, there's things you might not notice, but fresh minds always help for sure. That's one of the, I think, the biggest tools that anyone could use.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're gonna switch gears a little. Detention and demurrage fees are skyrocketing. So sometimes I believe I was reading into it. It's like hundreds per day. Like, what kind of metrics are you using to focus on helping clients improve in that area specifically?
Yeah. So with a lot of these services, including detention and demurrage, a lot of times it's not the actual cost, the detention and demurrage fees. It's not always those that are the problem. They're a symptom of a problem, right? They're a sign of these underlying inefficiencies at the dock doors, out in the yard. Fixing those issues, it doesn't just cut fees. It can make you a shipper of choice with some carriers, which can lead to better rates and better service. So you're not just reducing the detention and demurrage fees, you're also cutting your overall freight rates, right? And improving your service levels. So detention and demurrage, detention that can typically come from a carrier, your demurrage is often going to come from the port, right? The port authority. A lot of those charges, I would say the vast majority of those fees that mid and large size companies are paying, it's process issues. Or even worse, it's an inaccurate freight invoice. Now, I've seen detention to merge invoices come from large 3PLs, from large freight forwarders that are not accurate. But how do you know they're inaccurate if you don't have the data in place to compare the invoice to your data, right? If you lack data, if you lack your source of truth, if you lack the processes to collect that data, then there's no way for you to actually verify that the invoice is accurate and to fight back if there's an error, right? So you've got your invoice errors that you can always fight back on with your processes to collect and to house data. And then you also have your process issues, right? You've got to map your processes. You've got to do time studies. You've already got to understand where are the bottlenecks in this process and what's causing that container to not be picked up from port in a timely manner. What's causing this driver to dwell for 3 hours instead of 30 minutes, right? You really have to understand the process issues or missing processes and systems, right? Maybe you don't have a way of scheduling drivers to arrive. They just arrive whenever they arrive, right? That's going to cause peaks and valleys in your volume throughout the day too. So for detention and demurrage, there's so many opportunities just to improve your processes and implement new ones that can help you save vast sums of money per year on those fees.
Yeah, I think that's going back to what we were talking about earlier, also just touching on that because it's kind of about the technology aspect. As I feel like as people's businesses grows, sometimes they lack the, implementing the technology they need to grow and scale as they want to.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Look at it like this: digitizing paperwork, right? A bill of lading. What do you often see at a large company or smaller mid-sized company? The bill of lading, it comes in with the driver, they sign it, and then they put it away in the file cabinet, right? And then they have some kind of a records retention policy, and they keep it for a year, 5 years, or however long. And eventually, it's going to go off to some document warehouse somewhere and be forgotten. All right. What happens if you need to refer back to that BOL? Well, it's in a warehouse somewhere. You got to pay who knows how much money to get it back, right? What if you were to, novel idea here, scan that to digitize it so that you can refer to it on your share drive or on some other network somewhere? So even small ideas like that, just digitizing paperwork, that can enable you to, let's take it a step further, use AI-enabled tools, right, to maybe convert those into a spreadsheet or to do something to where now you have a good warehouse of data that you can then compare. You can identify trends, you can identify bottlenecks, and you can also go back and fight the invoices that you're receiving in the first place.
Yes, that's for sure helping with being organized because it's so easy to find. You brought back a lot of memories when you mentioned that. Like, many warehouses I worked at, we had to go in the pallets and pallets of boxes of paperwork to
Dusty, nasty
find.
pallets with silverfish and roaches, right? Yeah.
Yes, they would save it for 5 years, and it's not that that process is even new as far as digitization. That has nothing to do with AI. That's been around a long time. So
Hmm.
again, that goes back to implementing, when they want to scale. It's amazing what some people are lacking in that they can improve.
Yeah. But often it's about resources, right? And it's like that with just about everything I do is a lot of these things are parts of some of these services that everyone can do right now, but maybe they don't have the resources for it. Like again, scanning the bill of lading. Just about everyone can start to do that right now. But do they have the resources to do it? Does the receiving team or whoever it is that's housing these BOLs and putting them away, do they have the time and the capacity to actually scan everything, to put it in, to convert it to a digital format? And that's, I think, the struggle with these new ideas being adopted in the first place is a lot of times they say, well, we don't have the resources for it. But again, that's a benefit for calling me, is I can be the resource. Now, you're not going to pay me just to scan all your BOLs, but you're going to pay me to implement that process and to find new innovative ways of efficiently converting those to digital format. And then, of course, the further processes of the data housing and the analysis and the identifying quick wins. So, but I really think that everyone could somehow invest a little bit of additional resources into things like that, digitizing things that have been for so many years paper, right?
Yeah, like you were mentioning, it's going to take some convincing from all the way from the top down. I think that's probably would be the hardest part of implementing anything. You know, you got to convince everybody to use it in their day-to-day operation, maybe make some SOPs, you know, train people. So that goes hand in hand, and that's sometimes that's a big carry for some people, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about your future goals, or as far as the company goes. Where do you want Motive Logistics to be in the next maybe 6 to 12 months from now? Like, what is your ideal scenario?
I would just go back to being seen even more and more as a strategic partner, right? You know, they say on the personal side, you should always have a good attorney, a good CPA, and a good financial advisor, right? But let me add a fourth one for the business world is you should have a good strategic logistics advisor, and that's me, right? You know, what I do is less about the tactical side. I can absolutely help you with your daily processes and training, et cetera. But really, where I add that value is on the strategic side. And so I really want to be seen as that. I really want to continue to expand the service that I can provide on the strategic level. The supply chain resilience is huge. Technology adoption and integration is huge. Developing your technology roadmap for your business's future is so important. It's critical. And then this trade compliance, the risk, mitigating that risk, all of that is so critical. And that's what I see in the future. And in the near future for Motive Logistics, I see those being the service offerings that we're really investing most of our time and we're really adding the greatest return on investment for our clients.
Oh, that sounds exciting. I mean, I'm sure you seem very like you keep up with the time. So I'm sure we're gonna see a lot of cool things from you guys within the next, you know, few months. If you
Most
could, I
definitely, I hope
guess,
so.
yeah. If you could help clients solve one big challenge today, I mean, you know, whether it's issues with freight, maybe labor shortages, or again, I think maybe technology. I think I know your answer, but I kind of just want to touch on it. What would it be? Is it gonna be technology, you know, or
Uh, You know, it really, I hate to say it depends, but it depends on the needs of the business.
true?
You
Yeah.
know, I would say disruption itself, just in general, is constant. It's constantly happening, right? Disruption in the technology market, right? You've got AI that's coming in, and you have something else that's going to come in after that, and there's something that came before that, right? You know, too many companies, I would say, rely on hope. You know, let me use one port, let me use this one carrier, let me use this one supplier, and the resilient ones. They're building options. They're expanding that network. And so I would say that some some businesses, their challenge, you're right, is technology. Others, they're very much affected by this de minimis exemption going away. They're very much affected by the rapidly changing tariff landscape, let's say that. Others have big supply chain resilience issues, right? Where they're using a sole source for this one part that's so critical for this item that they manufacture. And if that supplier goes down, or one of that suppliers goes down, or they get new business and now they don't have capacity to support your volume, those are all risks for many different types of businesses. And so I would say that each business has their own challenges, many of which I can help with, of course. There's so many opportunities to go into an operation and to provide a 6 to 12 month ROI on a project. It's just a matter of us having the right conversations with the right people at those organizations and really clearly communicating the value and getting them to understand what their real needs are.
Seems like there's a lot of job security for you out there.
That could be said for sure with the rapidly changing landscape out there for sure.
Well, I do appreciate your approach. I like the tailored to the company approach. You know, like it's like anything in life. It's not a one size fits all. So that's gonna work best.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not trying, I don't have my little bag of these three different products that I'm trying to sell and I'm trying to fit it into every business, right?
Hmm.
Everyone has their own different needs, and I have such a vast, broad skill set. I'm not going to say I'm the best at everything because I'm definitely not, but I know where to find the right things, and I know which tools I need to use for each client to help make them successful.
No, for sure. I mean, Brad, thank you for joining me today. I feel like your real world logistics experience and your expertise is going to be valuable for our audience.
I would hope so. I would agree that I've been on the tactical level, I've been on the operational side, I've done the analytics as well, and I'm well versed in the technology as well as a lot of the regulatory and trade related things that are changing right now. And I think that again, so many businesses need so much help, and maybe they don't know where to go or they don't know who to ask for it. I'm going to put my hand up and say you can contact me, and I'll be happy to analyze the situation for you.
Perfect. Right into my next segment. Before we wrap up, can you tell listeners where they can find you and learn more about Motive Logistics, social medias,
Absolutely.
websites? This is your moment.
Yeah, most definitely. So the best place to connect with me, it's definitely going to be on LinkedIn. Just search for Brad Couvillon. I'm the only one on LinkedIn, it looks like. I'm always happy to talk about logistics challenges, whether they're yours or someone else's. I post pretty regularly on things that interest me. Often it's logistics and of course, new technology. And then we post pretty regularly on the company page as well. So give that one a follow. And then Motive Logistics, we have a website as well. It's motive-logistics.com. You can check that out, view our service offerings, learn a little bit more about me in particular. You can schedule a free call directly with me where we can talk through your challenges. We can talk through the status quo for you and where we can go from there.
All right, guys, you heard it here. Go check him out. Check him out and his Motive Logistics. As always, thank you for tuning into Inside AutoMind. If you found value in today's conversation, everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe and maybe tell someone about the episode.